some environmental groups are calling on the government to review the HS2 rail project in light of the pandemic. The high-speed line was signed off by Boris Johnson almost a year ago before travel ground to a halt as the pandemic hit the UK. Construction is underway and the first phase between London and Birmingham is due to open between 2029 and 2033. Let's discuss this further. I'm joined by Baroness Jenny Jones, the only Green Party member of the House of Lords, who is currently at Euston station in central London, where activists have been camped out in protest of HS2 for many months. Thank you for joining us, Baroness.
Thank you.
First off,
by the way, there's two members of the Green Party in the House of Lords now, and we're making a bit of a difference.
OK, thank you for that. Thank you for that update. First question, is the economic case for HS2 still viable?
Well, I would personally argue it's never viable, but of course it's not viable any longer. It was a scheme that was planned for a certain sort of normality, and that normality just doesn't exist anymore. People have got used to remote working, and I can't see them doing the same sort of travelling that they were before COVID.
There is the argument that what would happen is if we don't invest in infrastructure such as HS2, that we would have a car-led recovery, which has its downsides. The carbon footprint would increase and other disadvantages. What's your argument to that?
Well, there's quite a lot of arguments, of course. Yes, I completely agree that we should not go for a car-led society. That's something Greens and activists here feel very strongly about. But the fact is, HS2 was never a green option. It was always going to be. I mean, if you just look at the amount of embedded carbon in the whole scheme, because it's so super fast, they need extra strong bridges, extra strong sidings. From a green point of view, it was never viable. And quite honestly, if you've got £100 billion to spend, it would be much better investing in smaller local railways, in bus routes, in actually allowing people to move around without using their cars or without flying. And so HS2 is not the green option.
Well, Lord Adonis said that HS2 is emphatically green.
Yes, I've heard him say that, and I'm afraid it's nonsense. It was never green, and now it's even less green than it was before. We've had the CEO of HS2 Limited saying that he doesn't know how many services they'll run, he doesn't know how many passengers there'll be because of the pandemic, because people have learnt a different way of living, staying closer to home, seeing more of their families, their partners, their pets, and shopping locally. So HS2 was never viable, and now it's even less.
Understandably, there is a lot of uncertainty at the moment. Finally, the government has been releasing or getting involved with environmental statements. They have spoken of mitigation measures. What do you make of those?
I'm afraid this government does talk green, but it doesn't know, it doesn't understand the wider aspect. For example, it's talking about doing green initiatives all the time, but it still allows a coal mine to go forward. And it's still building roads, and it's still encouraging people to drive. So I'm afraid this government doesn't have any green credentials, and I do tell them that in the House of Lords.
Baroness, you spoke about investing in local projects, but what about this idea that you have to link the north with the south in a tighter way?
Well, first of all, what the north wants is more activity in the north, and so HS2 would have actually done the opposite. It would have brought more people to London out of the north, so it was never a good thing for the north. And the subsequent bits of HS2 that are planned to go ahead with Leeds and so on are likely not to go ahead, I would argue. The business case for them is looking less and less viable. So I think it'll be obvious to the government that the whole scheme should be scrapped.
Baroness Jenny Jones of the Green Party, thank you very much indeed.